Hi, I'm Han Brown, the host of the Boomer Living broadcast. At Boomer Living, we understand that the needs of seniors are constantly changing. That's why we offer a wide range of resources to help baby boomers live their best lives. Whether you're looking for information on senior healthcare, dementia, Parkinson's, caregiving, technology adoption, affordable senior living options, or financial insecurity, we got you covered. Our goal is to provide practical information and support to help you navigate this new phase of life. So, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're excited that you're here, and I want to encourage everyone to participate. So, please chime in and let us know what's on your mind. So, today's topic is baby boomer, blockchain, and beyond, how Web 3.0 technologies improve health. Baby boomers have always been known for their innovative thinking and for being on the forefront of new technologies. Well, now, as they enter retirement, baby boomers are once again at the forefront of innovation, this time in a form of metaverse, blockchain, and Web 3.0 technologies. While these new technologies offer a world of potential, they also come with unique set of challenges. One of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to use technologies to their advantage. Many baby boomers grew up in a time when everything was done offline, so adapting to a world where everything is online can be difficult. They also worry about online safety. Also, baby boomers must navigate the complex financial landscape where it can be hard to determine if assets are worth acquiring. Finally, baby boomers must learn how to use these technologies in conjunction with each other. Well, there's also numerous opportunities. As baby boomers age, the healthcare industry is preparing for an influx of patients. The blockchain technology has the potential to revolutionize how healthcare is delivered. It can be used to keep track of patient outcomes and medication regimens. This is very important for baby boomers who are more likely to take multiple medications and visit multiple specialists. Blockchain technology potentially would allow doctors and nurses to quickly find and fix problems in the care process. Blockchain could be used to verify the identities of patients and providers, ensuring that only authorized individuals have access to sensitive information. For baby boomers dealing with healthcare costs and payments, which can be a real hassle, well, you're on a fixed income. And every time you go to a doctor or get a prescription, it feels like there's another bill to pay. Well, fortunately, blockchain technology is beginning to change all that. With blockchain, payments can be made more efficiently and securely without all the paperwork and hassle. Well, these technologies offer a level of security and transparency that is incredibly important for older adults who are handling their finances for the first time. With blockchain, baby boomers can track their money and make sure that they are getting the best deals possible. And with tokens, they can access a wide range of financial services that can help them manage their money more effectively. As you can see, blockchain and tokens are becoming increasingly popular for baby boomers who want to take control of their financial future. And by harnessing the power of blockchain, we can ensure that baby boomers receive the best possible care. So join me today is Dr. Alex Kahana. He's a physician with over 25 years of clinical experience, specializing in Web 3.0 transformation and emerging markets and developing economies. He's a founding partner at Impact Rooms, an advisor to the XRSI and the venture partner at Global Blockchain Ventures, Limitless Ventures, and Aquarium Ventures. He believes that citizens should be transformed from healthcare or health service consumers into health and wealth producers. With this goal in mind, he spends his time consulting for various organizations around the world on how to harness the power of technologies like blockchain to improve healthcare delivery. So, Dr. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, good. Doing very well. And thank you for the kind introduction.
Yeah, yeah. So, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Manhattan.
Okay. All right. Good. So tell us a little bit about who Dr. Alex is personally and professionally.
I think we can use the whole hour for that, but I would say I was always accused of being an intellectual anarchist.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm a physician by training, and I've been a pain doctor for over 25 years. I've built multiple pain centers in the world, in Israel, and Japan, and Switzerland, and the United States. So, safe to say that I've seen different healthcare systems and global health. I've always been interested in technology and technology integration. I'm a very high touch, high tech individual. And when I got bit by the blockchain bug, I would say in 2013, I said, wow, I really don't understand this. And so I dived into it. I think it took me about 2.5 years to really wrap my head around it. And after that, I started to write about it, created a voice. And since then, it's just been a great experience.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn from you and well, from a physician, from a technologist, and from a baby boomer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Webster's dictionary defines Web 3.0 as a new stage of the World Wide Web in which users can interact with intelligent agents to obtain customized information. So, what do you think of that? What does that mean to you? What is Web 3.0 to you?
Yeah, I always had trouble with dictionaries that are more into description than actually explanation. I like to think, of course, as the web in general, our digital world. There's the physical me, and then there's the digital world that the portal into it is through the internet. And I like to think about the different numbers. Now, suddenly we're seeing numbers Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, Web 4,
Mhm.
and 5 as describing the proximity to that world. So in Web 1, which is when it started in mid 90s, I would just look at it. It would be, the Time magazine, but on my computer. Not a lot of interaction. Web 2, which is what we're living right now, there's some interaction. So I'm interacting with that digital world. The problem is that I don't own any of it. It's the platforms that own everything. They're the ones who control everything. They're the ones who are profiting from it. So Web 3 is that interaction, but with ownership, that I start to own part of that internet. And so it's not hard to understand that Web 4.0 would be almost like I am in the
Mhm.
internet with all these immersive technologies that are out there. And maybe, I don't know, Web 0.5, let's just go for it. I am the internet. So I'm not healthy, but I am health. So that's that conversion between the physical and the digital and what now we're in between the phygital.
All right. Okay. So, metaverse is often described as virtual reality where users can create their own worlds and experiences. Do you think that, do you think that will ever become a reality?
Well, this is almost like a philosophical question of what is reality. I first will say is that this has been going on for a while. I remember as a physician, I had a patient, I think 20 years back, a carpenter that their hand was cut off and they had phantom pain, which is the pain in a part of a body that you don't have. So the part wasn't there, but the pain was real, and the patient described how it hurt. He felt like the nail is piercing the palm of his hand. So I created a box with a mirror and asked them to open the hand, and they
Mhm.
would open it and pull the nail out, and they felt better. So in that sense, the brain doesn't really, if you want, need a body to feel, no more than we need a world to experience. So I think that it's there. We already are living in a reality. Now, whether it is a reality like we see in movies, like The Matrix, are we a simulation? Elon Musk likes to talk a lot about it. That's more philosophical, but definitely, I like to think of it of the extended mind. Our mind is not constrained to our skull or to our brain, but extends with the digital artifacts that are around us.
That's true. Well, with virtual reality, you're the architect of your own universe, right? You create new worlds or revisit old ones with infinite possibilities. But at the end of the day, you still come back to reality to eat, shower, sleep, and among other things, right? So it's exciting times.
It is.
Yeah.
I would say again, there are two worlds when we talk about reality. There is a observer independent reality. I look outside and I see a tree, and most people will look at it and they will see the same tree, and so those are facts. It's what we call objective, because we're seeing that object and we all agree upon it. But then, of course, there's an inner world that is very, very personal and very rich, and it is observer independent. And unfortunately, I think we neglect and we don't pay attention. Oh, it's subjective. It's not important. Who cares what you think? And I actually think that the opposite is true. That subjective, that comes from the word subject. That's really what counts. So when a patient will walk in and say, I have pain, I can't say, no, don't worry about it. I looked at the exams. It's fine. No, it is real. And
Mm-hmm.
so the if we manipulate or engineer or change that world using, for example, virtual reality, that adds another dimension of richness that can help us live in a more healthy and complete life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, some people believe that the rise of artificial intelligence may bring about the end of the world as you know it. Do you think there's any validity to this claim?
Yeah, well, I always say people who are listening to this who already heard me say this. I always say I'm more worried about not so much from artificial intelligence, but more from natural stupidity. So I think that in all seriousness, artificial intelligence is something that we don't fully understand, and that causes that concern. But when you start to really dive into it and you start to understand the different flavors of artificial intelligence, and again, you don't think about what we saw in Hollywood or documentaries or things of that sort, but really grasp the role of this type of technology, I am actually optimistic. I actually think that it will help us create or be part of this democratization of knowledge and give access to knowledge for people who don't have that access, and almost like level everyone, regardless of the geography, the generation, the gender, the financial background, a portal into a world that they seek to invest in.
Very true. And AI system, I mean, it's a tool. I mean, you could turn it into evil. I mean, people can use it to develop more effective weapons, or it could be used to target ads and other content in a way that to promote division or hatred. Again, it's a tool. It's inherently, it's not good or evil. It's up to us and how you want to use it.
I absolutely agree. I many times say that, and my technologist friends hate it when I say it. I say technology does nothing. It's what people do with that
Mhm.
technology. And I don't. Maybe you recall when I think it was Microsoft that used AI on Twitter and stopped it like after 24 hours because it was so bigoted and racist, and it took all the toxic language that was on Twitter and condensed it. And I think that that's a prime example of AI didn't do anything. What AI showed us is how do we speak on Twitter. And so now the question is, what do we do with it? Do we say, "Oh, look at AI. That AI bot is an awful racist," or say,
Mhm.
"Wow, this is how we talk. Then maybe we should talk differently. Maybe we should listen better. Maybe we should express ourselves with more empathy, with more love, to look at what connects us and not what differs between us." So I think that in that sense, AI is almost like a mirror that can help us, just like the mirror I built for the phantom pain, to understand not only who we are, but why we do the things we do.
Very true. Well, see, for the baby boomers, cryptocurrencies are a revolutionary way of spending and investing that's outside the traditional financial system. Their decentralized nature means that they're not subject to government or financial institution control, and making them really very appealing option for those who want to avoid centralized authority. Now, their anonymity and security make them very desirable for those looking to keep their finances private. So, do you see, with the rise of blockchain technology, do you see there's a future where we're all using cryptocurrencies?
I think that's a very good question, and I think that the answer is that things will take time, both from understanding what are cryptocurrencies, but also understanding what money is.
Hmm.
And what this really, what we're realizing is that there's no intrinsic value in money, right? There's no value to a piece of paper with a president that says on it, "In God we trust." It is almost like an agreement that I agree that when I see a George Washington on that green piece of paper with some type of serial number on it and a signature of the Secretary of Treasury, then that is worth a quarter of a hamburger. It's an agreement between us. In some places, they'll say, no, it's not worth that. You'll need to pay me more or maybe pay me less. So this is all about consensus. And the reason that
Hmm.
we're seeing these, I would say, limitations or movements towards adoption of cryptocurrency is because we don't all agree about it. Now, I always am open to listen to criticisms and what is wrong with things, but I also like to understand who is saying it and why. And that's really what this is all about. My interest in money is, as a doctor, understanding that you can't talk about mental health and physical health without talking about financial health. And so that is why I work a lot in emerging economies, in Africa, in Latin America, where most people are underbanked or unbanked. And so suddenly these type of currencies, these type of monies that are not controlled, manipulated, or suppressed by central entities, give them services that otherwise they wouldn't have. Suddenly, you're the bank. Suddenly, you can access me. I'm the bank. And this is where it starts to flip a little bit or change a little bit, that we're convinced that I can't do stuff without this intermediary. And I'll finish by saying an example. We're all old enough to remember that we used to use travel agents. It wasn't because we were rich or because there was no other way to travel than without talking to someone that knew all these things. And I always thought that my travel agent was supposed to look after me and get me the best deal. But then I realized that they make money on revenue that comes from the ticket. And so he was incented, or she was incented, to charge more. And so they didn't look after me, they looked after themselves. And so when the internet came out and democratized that information, suddenly that information that was only available to the travel agent, suddenly I saw it. So now I'm my own travel agent. I
Hmm.
want to travel. I go on the internet, I decide, and I purchase. Same thing with money, same thing with anything. That once we have data symmetry, not the data asymmetry, but data symmetry, the whole concept of what is an expert, why do we have to pay an expert, what are the fees, completely changes.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Innovations in technology comes with opportunities and many challenges, ethics and um accessibility and trustworthy. I mean, you name it. So but it's something worthwhile to keep an eye on because certainly you can't ignore all these opportunities. So, do you have any concerns about Web 3.0 will impact our privacy and safety?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. You mentioned this. I, by chance, wrote about this morning on LinkedIn. Uh, I would say two things. One is that the way Web 2.0 works is that I live my digital public life out in the open. And what I don't like is people knowing where I'm going, what I'm purchasing, what I'm reading, what I'm consuming. So that is why so many identities are hacked and suppressed and manipulated and exploited, because for some reason I'm convinced that it's okay that everybody can see my name and figure out stuff about me. What Web3 does is actually the opposite, is that I don't care that people say, oh, today, this morning, I bought a cup of coffee before I start this excellent interview, or that after that I will browse on a whole bunch of things that pertain to elderly health. But what I do know is that I'm anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually Web 3.0 brings in this privacy element that does not exist. And that is why our data is exploited, because we kind of freely consent. We do every time I agree. And we don't know that on page 49 in tiny fonts it says, and I can use all that information for forever I do to make money. And so Web 3.0 protects that privacy. I'll just add also that I think it's even more important that not only we talk about privacy and security, we talk about ownership. And that's really the magic of blockchain. Because for privacy, you can figure out stuff and build higher walls and better locks and better windows, and you don't need blockchain for that. And for security, it goes the same. But ownership, that I am the master of my information and I decide who sees what. I decide that I want Dr. Kahana to look at this. I decide that I want my pharmacist to look at that, or my insurance company to look at that. That is the magic of what blockchain brings.
Mm-hmm. So again, the potential benefits of Web 3.0 outweighs the risk, and it's important to be aware of both, before making that transition into 3.0. So, what are your thoughts on the potential of virtual reality and augmented reality to become mainstream in Web 3.0?
I think the potential is good, but like in everything, it's always harder than you think. I think that hardware is a real issue here. I remember in the early stages, we would have these headgears that would mount it on a wall, and you'd have to like kind of position yourself to that piece of gear in order to be an immersive reality. Um, I remember that I was sick to my stomach the first time I looked at it because of the flickering of the
Dizziness?
screen. But since then it has really improved. We're working now on, I know, Apple working on glasses and Google and stuff like that. I've seen contact lenses that are smart, that are miniaturized, that you can put on it, and it really feels like these science fiction where I'm looking at it. And so I think that hardware improvements are going to make it more useful. I think that people need to understand that immersion is not just vision, it's not just auditory or hearing, it is all the senses.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we going to start to wear wearables that cover our skin so I can feel sweat or weight or heat or cold? Am I going to have smell come into it? Am I going to have like movements that are going to make me feel that it's harder or easier? So I think that there still a lot of work to do for it to be easy enough to use. But I have no doubt that immersive technology will be adopted for the simple reason that it's super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has ever tried it, it is magical. And I remember a patient walking in the room and had real back pain and was sitting like this and going in slowly, put in glasses, put in the Oculus, and saw animals. I said, do you prefer watching or do you prefer hunting? And he said, I want to hunt them. And he was walking and jumping and hunting them, and I was filming him with my iPhone at the same time. And then he took it off and started to walk a little bit like this again. And he wasn't faking it.
Yeah.
And did not believe that actually he could move much more freely when we manipulated his external environment.
hmm Very true. I echo that. Now the applications are still in the gaming and entertainment space, and if there's more in the productive tasks like work or learning, we're probably going to see it to be, it'll catch on more. Um, and affordability, right? And ease to use. That's huge. A lot of seniors, again, they're on a fixed income, and it's got to be user friendly. Um, so
But but I
things like,
but I just want to make sure for the listeners is that we don't have to go for the very expensive high end things. I, for example, do virtual reality every evening. I'm exhausted. So what do? I draw a bath. I put some incense. I listen to music. I close my eye. What is that if not immerse myself
yeah.
in it? So I don't want people to have the false notion that if they don't buy this serious gamer multi-thousand-dollar piece of equipment, they are excluded from the capability or ability to immerse themselves in a different environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. Now, what implications does Web 3.0 have for businesses and consumers?
Oh wow, that is so important. I think that actually that is the reason why there's so much reluctance and hesitation um, towards the adoption or evolution towards an internet where we own part of it, because clearly it changes the business model. I always say that when I talk briefly, people either feel, oh my God, he's saying exactly what I think, or saying, wow, if he's right, we're in trouble.
hmm
Or also, why am I listening to this? There are also a couple of those of like, life is good. I don't understand why we need all this. But the bottom line is that it changes the power dynamics between large centralized entities and citizens. Now, just to make it clear, it's not that I don't like corporations or that I think there's no role, of capitalism in our life. I just think that the idea that they have everything and I have nothing is not a sustainable one. That's really what this is all about. And I think that there are very sophisticated people that I talk to from the business world that actually understand that. That instead of making one deal of $1 billion, maybe I take 1 billion people with $1 each and can get the same amount. And so there are ways to design a way that we do business that can absolutely fit the decentralized nature of Web 3.0. So
hmm
beyond the fairness of if a company sells my information and they make money off it, I would like to see a check in the mail. It's also that it can be done. We just have to rethink the way we do business. It's like my professor used to say, don't do things differently, just view them a little bit differently.
That's true. So rather than relying on a large central server farm, so this data will be distributed across a network of connected devices. So I guess this means for businesses, decentralization could reduce costs and improve efficiencies. And consumers, that means greater privacy and security. Um,
I think
it come. Go ahead.
no, I think you're right. I just want to make sure that people understand why I think centralization, what is good about centralization and what is bad about it. What is good about centralization is you can standardize things, you get efficiencies, you get things quick. If I have to ask everybody in my neighborhood of their opinion of what's the best way to do this presentation, I'd never get an answer. So there are good things about doing things coordinatedly and centralized. However, centralization is security vulnerable. You know, if
Mhm.
I am a honeypot of $1 billion, everybody will try to break in. So that's why we see these hacks. Everything can be hacked. The question is it worth it? And so centralization is security vulnerable. It is also censor vulnerable. I can say, well, I don't want people to see how many people died from COVID, so maybe we can fudge the numbers a little bit
Mhm.
or present it differently. So they're censor vulnerable and they're collusion vulnerable because I can go to you and say, how about we change a little bit? Can you edit this a little? Can you make me look better, younger, slimmer with a filter? And so what decentralization does is it makes the system more security resistant or cyber resistant. It makes it censor resistant. It makes it collusion resistant. And at the end of the day, we're all social animals. We like to be in a
Mhm.
community. And I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but remember when we talked about this, that for me, this idea of community is the key for health and wellness. And so I think that I almost want to say that blockchain is the technological representation of who we are as a society. We're not really made to be there's one centralized I don't know what, and then the rest is nothing.
Mhm. Very true. So now, how will Web 3.0 and the metaverse change the way that we consume information and interact with each other?
Well, I think that once we will have more ownership of our data, when we say ownership, ownership not just means I own something like a house or some asset that I can prove that it's mine. Ownership also means own your actions. In other words, when you're doing something malicious, everybody sees it. Accountability. There's a lot of lack of accountability. A lot of people doing nasty things. Now, we know it, but we feel that we can't do anything about it. And we become frustrated and angry. And so this reorganization in a Web3 format makes us more accountable. But it's not only our actions, it's also our words. And so this will actually help with the problem of disinformation because you can't go and say, well, Alex, you said that Web 3.0 started in the 1900s and why I looked at it and it's not true. I have to own what I'm saying. So on LinkedIn right now on a Web 2.0 format, I can say right under my name, Alex Kahana, and then write King of the World. You know, prove me that it's not true. But in Web 3.0 format, which is validated, where there are oracles that look and say, wait a second, I'm not sure that this is accurate, you create a system of trust. And that
Mhm.
changes the way we consume data because the problem is not the quantity of data. Every week, I think I look at it. I think we now have 176 exabytes of data and all that. It's not, but we can't trust it. I'm an optimist person. I want to trust. I want to trust the contracts I read and the news that I hear, the people that I talk to. But with the technology that it's behind blockchain, I can now trust. And that's why I always explain to people who are not technical, then ask me, what is blockchain? I say, blockchain is the software solution to the social problem of trust.
Mhm. Thank you. That's our next topic that we're going to cover. So I
Okay.
want to acknowledge some of our guests. Paul Zerberman, thank you for joining, and Ann Rhodes, thank you so much. Hey, thank you, Ravi, Elizabeth, Ron. Appreciate you guys asking. And I think Ron posed a question. If you could take that on, Dr. Alex. Question to Dr. Kahana. Can you please expand on the proposition that blockchain is a digital representation of who I am?
Well, hi, Ron, and of course, always deep questions from Ron. I'm not sure that blockchain would be the digital representation, but it would be one of the tools of that representation that, together with immersive technologies and privacy preserving technologies would be able to create some part of that representation in a digital format. I'm a big believer that there's always a part of me that can never be discovered or will need to be discovered. So definitely, I do not want to reduce myself to some type of digital footprint. But I think that the idea that we can control the digital cloud that we create around us is something central to blockchain and Web3, where we're talking about a peer-to-peer technology. I am now talking to Ron directly without 7 people in between that are saying, you're allowed to say this, you're not allowed to say that. Sure, if you want me to tell Ron, then you'll have to pay me a couple of cents on every transaction. And of course, that digital representation can be saved, can be analyzed, can provide me actionable information. Wow, I really walked a lot yesterday. Oh, I should really improve the meals and the quality of my food the next time I go out. So I think that it's a combination of technologies that determine, I would say, our digital self, but I believe that at the end there are limits to how can we digitize our personhood. Because even if I would give you now my whole genetic sequence, you still wouldn't know the aboutness of Alex.
Very true. Okay, so we touched on this a little bit. Let's just bring everybody on the same page. What are blockchain and how tokens and how blockchains and they work together? Why are blockchain tokens important? And how can blockchain and tokens be used in the real world? We talked about it a little bit, but can you do a deep dive to bring everybody on the same page?
Sure, sure. And again, I do not want this to be a technical conversation because I'm way more about the why and not about the how. That I leave for technologists or for some offline conversations. But I would say, like I said before, that the problem that blockchain is intended to solve is the trust that we can give in the data around us. And the best way for non-technical folks to think about it is, let's say I'm working on Google Doc or on Google Slides. You ask me, Alex, can you do a presentation? And I just start to put on things on it and whatever. And I know that you're looking at it, and I'm starting to pay attention. Maybe I should be a little bit more accurate. And then I know that Ron is looking at it and Paul is looking at it, and there's an audience of a couple of hundred that are looking at it. So maybe I should really be accurate and not write $3 when it's $2.95. And so it improves the quality and the integrity of my input. And then at the end of the day, when I'm done and I'm ready to send it to you, I say, okay, I cryptographically sign it, I lock it with a hash, and I send it out. And that is a block of data. And I do it for today and tomorrow and the next day. And they're all connected in chains. That's the blockchain. And that I can't go back and say, oh, the patient that I saw on Monday, yeah, maybe I'll change it a little bit because I forgot to measure their blood pressure. Maybe I'll put it in. Or maybe I'll just fudge the numbers a little bit to make me look better. I can't do that. So we've created a trail of data that can be audited, that are tamper-proof, that can't be manipulated the way data is right now. So if you ask me, I would prefer the original name. I think Satoshi wrote about Satoshi Nakamoto, who we think started this whole thing. I think he called it time chain because it's really about history, and I'm a history buff. So like from that Genesis block, the first block, let's see all the transactions that ever happened. But it's data organized in blocks that are connected in a chain that makes it super secure, and therefore it is trustworthy. It's a single source of truth.
Like what you described, that's a smart contract. right?
What I described is a distributed ledger technology. On top of that, a smart contract is just a digital contract that's smart, that says something. If, when, then. If I log in on time, then you will say, Alex, thumbs up. And a lot of people like to use the image of a vending machine. A vending machine that you put in a quarter or 4 quarters and you get Dr. Pepper. That's it. You don't put 5 quarters and get something else. You don't put 3 quarters and get anything. There are conditions that are met and things are executed. And the idea of it being managed by code basically takes out the weakness of the humans. That, okay, today I'm tired, I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I'm greedy, or maybe I'm depressed, or we take that away and we automate all these contracts and we make them more complete. And that's the part of smart contract. The part of tokens, which I think are magical, and for me, that's really what this is all about, is that they capture the activity that we do. And when you capture it, you're able to value it, you're able to price it, and then you're able to exchange it and then trade with it. So, for example, you and I now are engaging in an activity. You're interviewing, and I'm an interviewee. What do I get? I don't get money, but I get a lot of non-monetary rewards. I see that you're happy. I see that your audience is happy. People are saying, wow, this is so nice to listen to Dr. Kahana. But when this is over, it's done. It's ephemeric. It never returns. I can't quantify it. I don't know, did I did good? Did I did really, really good? You call me and say, Alex, it was really nice. If there was a token, let's say there was a Han token now, and I would do this, then every time, let's say you'd get a like on chat, I would hear bing on my phone. And I would continue to, and I'd get another bing. And so you quantify and we define. What is it? Is it a like? Is it a positive remark? Is it engagement in the platform? Is it the length of my answer? So tokens represent the capturing of the activity that we do that has value, and then we can quantify it. And then I can finish and say, this was really good because I got 20 coins, 20 tokens. And you say, you know what? That is the most tokens ever a interviewee got. They usually get only 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So much, whether you're baby boomers or just, in any age, there's a lot of grasp because this is still very new. So,
Yeah, it is new, but in a lot of sense, it's not. Because to understand that we do a lot of things that have value, why do they have value? Because they give us pleasure, because they make us feel good, because we're appreciated. That's something that we know. What is new is that now there is technology that is able to quantify it. And then when you can quantify it, you can say, do more of that. Or if you do something that's not so good, you can say, don't do that, or we'll take away from you tokens. And as a pain doctor, that's how you do behavior modification. And that's why when you mentioned in the beginning, when you introduced me, how to transform individuals from consumers to producers. What is this now? No, it's just, sure, the more tests you do, the more pills you take, the sicker you are, I make a living. If you're healthy, I lose my job. On the other hand, if we create this game between us, where the healthier you are, the more I get, in the terms, it doesn't matter if it's tokens or rewards or stars or thumbs up, it doesn't matter, then I can actually gauge your change and you can start to produce health. And if it's in cryptocurrencies, you can actually make money, and so you can produce wealth.
A lot to grasp here. Do you think the baby boomers will be able to understand and use blockchain and tokens?
Well, I'm an example of one, so I would like to think yes. I've not been endowed in any magical powers. I think that, like anything, I think that baby boomers are not very happy of what they're seeing. They're looking in and saying, wait a second, why is it that there's so much disinformation out there? Why is it that there's so much division out there? Why is it that there's so much inequality out there, that some are doing so well and others are doing so poorly? And so when you start to ponder on these questions and you ask, okay, how can we solve this? You find yourself actually describing Web3, actually describing blockchain. And the only thing that I do is I give them names. And people say, oh, so Dr. Kahana, do you think that we should do this? I would say, exactly. And that's called a token. And should we do this, and that? Yes, that is called virtual reality. And so I don't think that it's hard. I think that it requires us the, I would say, energy and the will to continue and better ourselves and better our community.
I echo that. Now, I want to bring to your attention, we're at, as far as timing, we are at the later part. However, I did not put an ending time. Are you okay if this goes over an hour?
That is fine with me. As long as your audience is engaged, I am here to share.
Okay. Hey, in the audience, would you guys like, if we go over an hour, would you stick around? Just acknowledge by saying yes or no. Because we still have at least a dozen of questions for this conversation. So let me know if you plan on sticking around. Just say yes or no in the comment. Thank you. Now, we're going to talk about AI and robotics. How do you think AI and robots will change the way we interact with older adults?
That is a great topic, and I love this topic because it's tangible. First of all, a lot of us grew up loving robots and seeing robots, and so we're influenced by that. And for me, the robot is basically AI that is morphed into something that has a body, anthropomorphized, and it's easier to say. So when I say, for example, I mentioned self-sovereign identity and NFTs and QR codes, and people just look at me. But when I say, imagine now in the metaverse, you are looking at your avatar. You're saying, oh, that's me. And you I always put my avatar has more hair than I do. But they're always that digital self that you see there. And that avatar is attached to an identity, which belongs to you, which is called self-sovereign, which is captured by a token, which cannot be replaced, which is an NFT, which can be scanned by a QR code. So I think that robotics in general help us understand more the digital world because it is phygital. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. And because of that, there are a lot of really cool things that have been already done, but now we understand can be even more and more done because robotics seem more and more human-like. We have these sentient robots that, with a rubber skin, that just look so real and all this. And a lot of thanks to Disney and Hollywood and the gaming world who have brought that upon us, and the researchers like handsome robots. It's just amazing. And I would say that until now, we looked at robots as tools to help us and serve us. So pick up heavy things, move things from place to place, go up and down, do repetitive manual, physical or intense work that otherwise would cause us, to hurt ourselves and really suffer. In what we're starting to see now, especially in Japan, is that they can also be companions, that they have features that allow us to develop empathy to it. And it's really interesting that we are capable of developing empathy through what's called mirror neurons, that, if you tell me about your pain and you have neurons activating in your brain, me just listening to your pain, the same neurons will be activated in my brain. And when I say, I feel you, that's what it is. So we are, through our mirror neurons, capable to exercise empathy with non-human robots, and we can connect with them, I would say, in ways that are meaningful. So, for example, in Japan, where there's an aging population and there are small families, and many times the parents outlive their children, there can be couples that have their own robot daughter where they
Mhm.
actually interact with. Now, it starts to become funny when they prefer to spend time with their robot daughter than their actual biological daughter because she's nicer and she doesn't, talk back and all of that sort. But the dynamic of human machine dyad is a real thing and very exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as far as robots and older adults, I mean, we're already seeing they can help with bathing, dressing, grooming, medication, reminders, social support. It can help monitor seniors' health and conditions. These AI chatbots can help seniors learn about technology as well. There's automated transportation systems. What else? I mean, virtual reality, like you described, it can recreate past memories and visit new ones. Assistive technologies, smart homes, plenty. uh,
I think we're just limited by our imagination. Now, some of them are a little bit, I would say, the word my 16-year-old would use was cringy. Like
hmm,
the fact that we can, with memory now, with generative adversarial networks, what's called GAN, you can actually create these deep fakes where years after I pass, you can have an image of me and with voice talk with my
mhm,
voice and can actually have a conversation with me. And if the AI has followed and listened to all my podcasts, they'd probably give a better podcast than I would and answer questions. So I don't know about the impact that robots have on the natality and mortality of data. That's something that is to be determined, but definitely this is something that we're walking to, and I am walking to it as part of, like I said, the Web 5 is that proximity that we have to that digital world where I don't think that I'll see it in my lifetime, but we will be the digital world, and maybe there will be less of a distinction. But right now, I think that robots have a very important role. Maybe I'll say this, because the opposite of health, and we talked about this, right? The opposite of health, in my opinion, is not disease or illness. The opposite of health is isolation.
mm,
That through disease and illness, we become isolated. So if we agree that the opposite of health is isolation, the journey back to health is connectedness.
mhm.
And that connectedness could be with family, with friends, with robots, with our
Robot,
data,
yeah.
community, right? And the way I explain it is that if we replace the I in illness with we, then we get wellness. And so perhaps that dyad that we create, or triad if we're a couple, with our robot or robots, can pull us out of that isolation and sense of hopelessness and helplessness and bring us to the we, to the wellness that connects also to the metaverse, to blockchain, and to communities.
Absolutely. Okay. So, what are your thoughts on the ethical implications of replacing human workforce with robots, or just humans interacting with older adults? They're two separate, but they're kind of parallel with each other.
Well, the ethical framework that I work in, which is the biomedical framework, really speaks to four tenets. It speaks to respect of autonomy.
Hmm.
It speaks to non-malfeasance, do no harm. It speaks to beneficence, doing good with a capital G, and it speaks to distributed justice, access and equity of care. And so, again, if a robot or AI for that matter, or any of the technologies we talk about, help fortify and preserve the autonomy, that is awesome. That's why I love this extended mind. The iPhone that I have is not just a piece of hardware, it is a piece of me. And so now I don't remember any numbers of any of my friends. I used to when I was a kid. Now I don't. So if I lose it, I lose a piece of me. I lose my memories. I lose photos and videos. This is important. This is not like, okay, your iPhone is lost. Anybody who had their computer crash or their iPhone or something, it is devastating. And so it's no different than patients with cognitive decline or Alzheimer who use Post-its and do totally fine at home. When they have all the houses covered with Post-its, you take away their Post-its, they've lost a lot of their autonomy. So technology in that sense, and that Post-it is AI. That Post-it is an artificial intelligence. We say, don't forget to turn off the light. That is a piece of artificial intelligence. And so they need to improve your autonomy, definitely do no harm. And when we understand that good is being connected and harm is isolation, then that is a good guide of what is considered harm and well. In the good with capital G, we always talk about the same things, and that is flourishing and love and empathy and being together with our family and our communities. And of course, distributed justice, that if I am the only one who has a robot at the expense of all the others getting all other medical treatment, that is not okay. That is not okay. And I think there was recently a meme going on, that cover on Forbes, where you see a monkey eating a banana, and under it it said, if this monkey is hoarding all these bananas while all his fellow monkeys are starving, that monkey would be a subject of serious research. But if it's human, we put them on Forbes, on the cover of Forbes.
Yeah.
So I think that if anything, these digital companions will actually teach us to be better. And so they are ethically good.
Very true. There has to be some governance in that as well. Now, I want to acknowledge more guests and also answer some questions. Hey, thanks, Robbie. He raised a question. Do they really need to understand blockchain? Can they just not know that they now have to have the choice of who sees their data and what they get paid for folks using their data? What do you think, Dr. Kahana?
Absolutely, Ravi. Hi, Ravi. Absolutely, you don't need to know what's under the hood. I for years did not know how fax worked, and I didn't know how the internet works, and it did not stop me from interacting with the digital world. I find it interesting that people are so obsessed knowing the intricacies of blockchain when they are so digital uninformed. So that's interesting for me to say, okay, why are you asking me about that? I don't recall you asking me about other things. So the answer is no, they do not really need to know these things. And that is why I give these, I would say, more explanatory frameworks of what it does. What problem does it solve? How does your Web 2 world look versus what the Web 3 world will look? How does a world that where you don't have access to immersive technologies or robots or AI look like versus the ones that you will have those things? And I don't mind talking about these things. I don't think that it's beyond the comprehension of anybody. I just think, like in anything technical or professional, there's professional jargon, our own private language, and we use it, and you just have to understand. So like in medicine, you need to understand that when I say all the tests are negative, that's a good thing, even though it's negative. But for me, it's good because that means that there's nothing bad, so it's good. Or you know, when you are COVID positive, that is a bad thing. Well, it was positive. So every every technology has its own jargon. I do not find the use of saying it's a public distributed ledger. I don't think those things are helpful. So that is why I've tried during this conversation to give these type of more, I would say, philosophical, if you wish, explanations.
Great. Thank you, Robbie. Have a good afternoon. I see that you have to go. No problem. All right. So we have just a couple more. I think I'd like to talk about AI and robots that perform the same tasks as caregivers. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that different countries, different communities, different marketplaces have different needs. I'm always fascinated by a project, and now started in Finland, and now is the same thing in Switzerland, where young adults that find cost of living too prohibitive actually live with elders that usually have accommodation. And in return for that rent, they spend time with them. And so that solves the problem of isolation for the elderly. And that is an example where it just fit the beauty of the community. They felt that this is a proper way to connect people to each other. Now, on the other hand, I mentioned Japan. It's the same thing in South Korea. I visited Japan the first time in the 80s, and there was a vending machine on every corner. It was so, super duper technical. And so it made sense to have robots. And I remember the Sony building and Honda robots. And way before we even knew about these things, we were still paying with paper cash, and everything was done digital in Japan and Korea. I remember in Taiwan and in Singapore. So I would say that every community needs to emerge with their own solution. And I don't think that it's a one size fit all. I don't think that robots will do the same thing in some places. Maybe here in the United States, robots will just be, like you said, automated transport or automated schlepping, or just, do the dishes or do grocery. I don't know. But what I do know is that there's no limit to what robots can do. And that if they're designed properly, contextually, ethically, with paying attention to things like bias and malice, then they can be very, very helpful in a world that needs them. So we need the robots to help us in places where we have our blind spots. And elderly care is one of our serious blind spots of not paying attention. And I'm not just saying that because I'm getting close and it's feeling real. I've always thought about it, and through my work as a pain doctor and seeing elderly pain, how it was always undermanaged and undertreated. And so technology for me was always if you wish, a vitamin, a supplement, a fortifier to that.
Great analogy. Thank you so much. All right. So now I'd like to know, how do technologies keep us younger, smarter, and happier?
Well, I can say just on me, it
Yeah.
has transformed my life. I've always been curious George. I've always been, like I said, that intellectual anarchist, or why, ask why. I remember in Switzerland, they would always call me Dr. Pourquoi, Dr. Why, or Dr. Et alors, which means, and now what, so. And so this real pushing to the edge keeps you on your toes. And we now know the brain is our strongest muscle. You have to use it. And so I think that there are the cognitive, emotional, but also physical engagements that immersive technology brings into us. We can actually do things more like the gentleman I described that moved like he never moved before by playing again. That if you tell me, Dr. Kahana, I want you now after this call to do some mindfulness and breathing and meditation. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is Manhattan. There are like sirens all the time. I can't do this. There are now technology ways where I can just go into a corner and immerse myself and go to that beautiful island in the Indian Ocean on the coast of East Africa and immerse myself. So yes, it can make us emotionally, mentally, and physically agile,
Mm-hmm.
happy, curious, excited, and in the loop. And I can tell you, I'm always the oldest guy in the room when I talk to all my colleagues, and they feel so excited to talk to someone who's seen it. What? When you were there was no TV, or TV was black and white.
Yeah.
And so we have so much to offer, and technology enables us to offer and give them insights, because when we're gone, all that knowledge will be gone with us.
Yeah, I want to add to that. It keeps you thriving. It gives you purpose, right? Purpose, thrive, which are very key components for baby boomers. And I mean, clearly, it keeps you in touch, across the world. It made it easier for us to learn new things. And there's GPS tracking devices, keeps you safe, improve your health and fitness. There's online dating, connecting with potential partners, streaming services to allow us to listen to music, watch TV shows, and make traveling easier. Smartphones give us access to a wealth of information, and social media platforms, like you mentioned, augmented reality. So, gosh, how was life like without technology?
It's never been a better time. Think
Hmm.
about how in the 17th century, when they came with the first technology and they gave eyeglasses, and suddenly people could see. They were blind and they couldn't see, and they gave them this little thing, and suddenly they could see. Think about their joy and compare that to our joy. This is the
Hmm.
best time to live, because we have a portal, and I love that the word thriving and flourishing. We can do whatever we want to be. And what makes this time unique than others is that bad things that happened in the past were mostly because of ignorance. We
Hmm.
just didn't know. Now it's because of ineptitude, because we
Hmm.
know,
We
we
know.
just choose
Hmm.
not to. So we have
Hmm.
no excuse to live nothing less than a great life. It's just for us to grab.
Hmm. Very true. Very true. This is a last question. I think it's really important to keep this in mind. Is that I guess I want to ask your take. What's the most important thing that you think we as humans need to remember when it comes to technology and aging? What is your words of wisdom on that?
Well, I think, and we said that before in a different context, that technology doesn't do anything. Is what we do with it.
Hmm.
There's this in philosophy. It's called. It has a fancy name. It's called mereological fallacy. But basically, what it means is that I attribute the characteristics of a whole to a part. So, for example, I say, my brain wants, my brain thinks, my left side does this, my right side does that. That's not true. That's a figure of speech. The true statement is, Alex with his brain does this, Alex with his left side and right side does this and that. And so technology doesn't do anything. It's what we do with that technology. So now, and I don't even have to say the type of technology. I can talk to you directly. I don't have to say,
Hmm.
oh, I am doing this technology thanks to internet, webcam, direct peer-to-peer, I don't know what. There's no need. It's that we now do something, and I like this idea of the extended mind, that technology is part of our capabilities. And I like to use technology as a verb and not as a
Hmm.
noun. I sit, I think, I eat, I tech, and that's it. And if we look at it this way, then it just is part of me. And we're all good people. And so we'll
Mhm.
do good stuff with it. We tech well. It's
Yeah.
up to us to tech well and not tech poorly.
Absolutely. And with the right tools and attitude, aging doesn't have to mean that you have to give up on technology altogether. And there's no one size fits all answer when it comes to technology and aging, other than I would highly encourage you that don't stop. Don't stop learning. Technology is a means to learn and grow and thrive and flourish, and all of which you will need as you age.
Love it. And I love how you use the age as a verb. Your age used to be this noun. What is your age? But now we age well.
Hmm.
And part of aging well is loving well, exercising well, teching well, eating well. It's just another dimension that connects us from the physical to the digital. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you would like to add as we come to a closing?
I would say that this is one of the most fun, if not the most fun, conversation I've had because it takes things from a very different approach, a very human centric approach. And this is really what this is all about. Because at the end of the day, none of us is as good as all of us. And I appreciate you for what you're doing and the questions that you asked.
Thank you. Thank you so much for shedding your wisdom. I appreciate your time. So, in conclusion, baby boomers have always been at the forefront of technological innovation. They were the first to adapt personal computers, to embrace the internet, and now they are poised to lead the way with blockchain technology. Blockchain is still in its early stages, but it has the potential to revolutionize the way we live and work. Sure, there are challenges and we need to overcome and as we adapt this new technology. But the benefits of using blockchain technology are too great to ignore. So, responsible development and implementation of blockchain technology will be very important for our success. And we need to make sure that everyone has access to this new technology so that they can benefit from its many advantages. And the baby boomers have always been leaders when it comes to technology, and they are sure to play a major role in the development and implementation of blockchain technology. So, thank you so much for joining today. And a few topics for upcoming weeks. One is that we're going to talk about research in age related cognitive decline and connecting the world of neuroscience and neurology. Another topic is we can help breathe new life into your multifamily and senior living assets. Another topic is aging in place safely and successfully while preparing for long term care. Then also reframing the perception and experience of growing older. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your questions. We learned so much from you as well, and we'll see you next week. Take care.